And we're live. Hello, everyone. My name is Jay Goradia, and I'm from Crowdsphere. Crowdsphere is an equity crowdfunding and peer-to-peer lending platform managed by Armillery Private Capital. Before we begin, we have a small legal disclaimer. Investing involves risk. You aren't guaranteed to make your money back, and you might lose the money you started with. Any information we provide is general only and current at the time. If you're looking for help with your investment choices, we recommend talking to a licensed financial advisor, and we won't be providing any personalized advice as part of this webinar. If you're looking for more information, you're welcome to check out the FAQ page on the Crowdsphere website or send us an email at support@crowdsphere.co.nz. A copy of our disclosure statement and risk warning is available on our website. If you have any questions on today's presentation, please submit it in the comment section, and we'll try and answer your questions towards the end of the session. I am joined today by Andrew Willis and Chris Mackle, founders of WoFo, a gig economy platform that provides an easy-to-use app-based alternative to existing agencies and recruitment companies. I'll hand it over to you, Andrew and Chris, for you to introduce yourselves and give us a bit of background on WoFo.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris and this is Andrew. Thank you for joining us today. It's hopefully you'll get quite a bit of value out of this. I do appreciate your time for this. I'll start a wee bit about WoFo and where WoFo came from. Andrew and I met at a company called Cook Brothers Construction about 5 years ago now, or even a bit longer. And we sort of hit it off, and we would talk quite often about ideas and things that we could do to change how the current events were happening in the company. We actually settled on doing a bit of work together, and then realising that in construction there was a big gap in labour hire, and that the companies that would provide the labour to other companies would take a big premium and not pay the workers a particularly fair wage. So after we started talking, and the company director let us access all the information that we could, we found out that quite often that on a $3 million a year labour hire balance, that 1 million of that was actually being held for the labour hire companies. That's how much they were keeping for themselves and not paying on, and effectively, so the company we worked with was paying quite a premium. So Andrew and I got to talking, we started talking, and we basically created WoFo with that in mind. How do we create a gig economy platform that removes the overheads of what the current industry has? So we started off, this is 2019, yep, was our first trading year. We went out and we customized and created an app and a service delivery model. And then we introduced ourselves to the market with the blessing of our previous employer, who also wanted to invest, but at the time we felt it was probably not having a construction company investing in it when we were going after construction clients was probably not the best look. So we went into the marketplace. We went into all different industries straight off the bat. In the first 7 months, we actually had quite a massive amount of growth. We were across a lot of different industries, and that's when COVID hit. So when COVID hit, it's quite remarkable how much of a dent that can make when you're in the startup mindset. It's not something you necessarily factor in. You're just waiting on growth and making sure you get the next client, making sure you make bank effectively. So we got to the first 7 months, the COVID hit, and our revenue was nearly at $1 million then in the first 7 months from that 7 month run. And it all stopped and came crashing down very quickly to the COVID lockdown, as it did for everyone. But our model was very much around people working. And of course, when you're not allowed to work, it's a struggle to generate an income. So it got us to thinking a wee bit of how we would protect ourselves in the future, because we didn't really think COVID was going to be going away. And if it does, it'll be just something different later down the track. So we started reaching out further into the field and other avenues more. So, you know, things like cleaning services and stuff like that. And it just happened that one day that we called a big company in Auckland, that was Radius Care. And Radius Care said, look, we do need cleaners. but how do you guys do you want to do something in healthcare? And so it was an interesting conversation. We flew up to Auckland, we had a chat, we sat down around the board table. We met Brian Cree, the owner at the time of Radius Care. Quite enthusiastic, and we charged into basically a 12-month pilot with Radius Care, where we learned everything we could learn about the healthcare system in aged care. The next lockdown happened a wee bit, but we were sort of prepared for it this time. And because we were starting to move into healthcare, effectively everything was quite different. So at the start of this year, would have been February, March, Andrew and I made the decision that the focus would be purely healthcare, and we removed all the other industries at the time for the facility so that we could focus on one particular area. Not to say that we're not going to go back to those other areas, but the growth market right now, and obviously the one on everyone's minds, is healthcare. So we still have a lot of connections in the other directions, but we have created WoFo MedStaff, which is purely dedicated to the healthcare sector. And I'll hand you over a wee bit to Andrew, who can go through the growth that we've experienced, and a bit of the financials, or the growth especially.
Yeah, well, just a summary to emphasise what's happened since we've made the change to healthcare. We did about 1.8 million GMV last year. That was affected somewhat by the last of the lockdowns. But since February, we've been growing really fast. The last 3 months, we've been growing by more than 100K per month. So we're actually ahead of our forecasts at the moment. Looking like we'll probably exceed 4 million this current financial year, and we're currently hitting over a 7 million a year run rate. So our projection of 15 for the financial year 23 is looking like that might be quite a low ball as well. So it's definitely made a big impact on our trajectory, making that switch. It's working really well for us. Certainly we can look into other industries, but we've found that what really pays off is customizing to the industry specific. People like to think they're unique and respond to the branding when you focus on it per industry. So probably what we'll do in future to roll out other industries is create a whole new branding, a whole separate app. We think the low-hanging fruit in that space is probably hospo. So we'd launch a WoFo hospo.
Possibly look at the trades again.
The trades again. I think the trades, if we go into trades, we need to be, there's a slight credit risk there. So we're not rushing back to that space. But definitely there's a lot of other revenue generating options around the health and safety and that sort of thing as well. So we've been there before and we can certainly go there again. But there's a lot of room for growth in the healthcare sector.
Fantastic. So what are the issues that are facing the I guess, temporary staffing and recruiting industry at the moment?
Well, the obvious one for us is that we're short about 4,000 nurses in the country at the moment. So that's a big problem, and it's not easily fixed. Obviously requires a lot of recruitment, training, and immigration and education to fill those 4,000 spots. And we're also competing with countries like Australia that offer more money. So that problem's going to be around, in my opinion, for the foreseeable future. COVID obviously is playing a role. People are staying off work, taking more sick days. It's exacerbating the problem a little. And then of course there's the margins imposed on temp labour by the status quo. So yeah.
Right, and WoFo's answer to this is?
Well, basically we just provide a more flexible way to fill the problems. We're quicker, cheaper and easier to use. For example, in Christchurch this morning we would have sent out, how many have we filled this morning?
Approximately about 30 RN shifts for the coming week.
Right.
For the next 7 days. All filled within about 3 minutes. Just, yeah, I look, it's just, it's not you can't match it at the moment.
And the competition field?
Well, the competition field won, but they've just cancelled it, so we have another one to fill. But and that's our main competitor, Mackle.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Speaking of competitors, what does WoFo have that is different from its competitors?
Oh, the ability for our contractors to choose their own rate and their own hours that they want to work is particularly attractive. We also don't tell them, they have no restrictions on who else they can work for. So we've got a good combination of people that use us for their full-time wage, and also a lot of people that are sort of semi-retired or working in other jobs, and just use us to sort of supplement their income.
Right. So I guess the question would be, what is the purpose of the equity raise that you're currently doing through Crowdsphere, and what are the plans post-raise?
Okay, so there's three things primarily. The first is that we're growing pretty fast, and we're going to be hitting that $1 million a month really soon. So that obviously creates a need to have some cash on hand to facilitate that sort of level of growth. And also with the OCR rises, having that funding it by debt is getting a little more expensive, so we'd prefer to have the cash for it. Other thing we want to do is improve our tech stack. We'd like to do a progressive web app version that has a little more functionality to improve our user experience. And we've also got some ideas to improve our margin and add a few more features into our tech stack, which we're looking forward to. And then thirdly, we'd like to explore other markets. So a lot of our bigger clients are already in Australia, which gives us a bit of a window into that market. And we're also like the idea of Singapore, which is close enough that we can have a good launch there, I think, with sufficient capital.
Right. Fantastic. So that sort of brings us quite nicely into what are future opportunities, and what is sort of, where do you see yourself post-raise over the next 2 or 3 years?
Right, so we think we can easily get to 50 million plus a year just in our aged care New Zealand space. We think there's about another 50 million if we can get into DHBs, and I can't see why we couldn't. And then obviously Australia has a market about 10 times the size, so that's potentially a $500 million opportunity over there. And Singapore was the other obvious market that we had in mind, which is around about twice the size of the New Zealand market. So we think there's potentially a $200 million opportunity there. We think we can probably achieve growth in all three of those markets in the next 3 years. So that's our aim.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll open up for audience questions, because there seems to be a few that have come in. So this sort of nicely ties into what Catherine's question was, which was, are there any plans to expand internationally? So I guess you've just spoken about, Australia is a huge market, Singapore is a huge market. How do you see that expansion happening? What is the time frame around that? And what are, I guess, if you also link into David's comments, what are the sectors that you'll get into, not only in New Zealand, but in those markets as well? Or what is the next sector that you're looking at specifically?
All right, I think the next sector, the low-hanging fruit, I suppose, would be hospitality. There is already a competitor in that space in Australia. I think they're called SUP.
Yeah.
They've just actually done a capital raise, so it might be a bit more of a crowded market, but it would be easy for us to enter it. And we also have quite a bit of knowledge of the construction sector, but we probably need to do a bit more work on the app to offer a bit more health and safety and do something about the credit risk too, because we don't really want to be extending credit to small players in construction over the next short while.
The good thing about the health sector is that there's very limited credit risk for us. It's all very much backed.
We do have blue chip clients almost exclusively, which is great.
Yeah.
In terms of the overseas markets, I mentioned Australia mostly because a lot of our bigger clients that we've just brought on, the likes of Ryman and so on, already have a presence there. So I think it would be quite an easy entry into that market.
Mm-hmm.
We also chose Singapore just because they're a similar country with a bigger market. They've got pretty ubiquitous data, so the app should work really well there. Densely populated, and also
similar models,
and so just similar laws. So we should be able to easily launch there. Then of course there's the big markets of Europe and the USA, but I think we need a lot more cash to get into those giant markets.
Yeah, and so what would be a cash requirement for you, or in fact, not just from cash perspective, maybe from a tech and difficulty perspective? How difficult or easy is it for you to have what you call WoFo Hospo, or whatever it may be called, to pivot into that hospitality industry, which you suggested it might be, or is most likely the next sector, right?
Yeah, not difficult. I think pretty much the app already works. So what we do is just copy it and rebrand it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With nuances for that particular industry. And sometimes it's the fundamentals you need to learn about that industry to make sure how it's going to be picked up and adapted. Our workforce for registered nurses and healthcare assistants is quite different to, for example, chefs and kitchen hands and waiters and waitresses. So learning a wee bit about what your workforce is and what makes them tick has been a big thing that made the med staff function of us so successful, is that we know how. We took the time out to learn how the workers actually want it to happen. And then we accommodate everything with the facilities and create that bridge.
Right, fantastic. Any concluding remarks or anything you'd like to add from your end?
No, just probably that it's a really good time to jump on. We've had really good growth, especially in the last 3 months. We're looking like we will easily exceed our forecasts at this stage. So
even without the funding.
Yeah, funding or not, I think we're ahead of our forecasts, and it's a great time to jump in.
Oh, that's great. It's always a good thing when you're beating your budget, right? And you don't even need equity to do it. Well, a recording of this.
Also profitable.
We like that part.
Yeah, we've crossed that line into the black, which is fantastic for a startup, I think.
Yeah, that is fantastic, and it's also very rare. So well done, and hopefully more success to come. And hope your equity raise is extremely successful. A recorded version of this webinar will be available both via LinkedIn as well as on the Crowdsphere website. You can see it on the landing page of WoFo. Yep, if you have any questions, again, you can contact us on support@crowdsphere.co.nz. Thank you for your time today. Take care and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
Thank you,
everyone.